sorry. I play both sides. Yeah.
You get it.
Can we start? And then if it's not here, one first resident speaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's almost like what's the name? Taylor.
I've never had a professional sign up.
You good energy?
She's sustained.
Signs in there. My will do. We're gonna start.
All you kids filming us, this is what democracy looks like.
All right. Our friends are on their way, so we are going to get started. All right, let's give Jody some support. One more chance. Yes. Hey, hey, ho, ho. George Santos has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Santos has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Santos has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Santos has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Santos has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Santos has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Santos has got to go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me all right? No, louder. I'm Jody Cass-Finkel. I'm the coordinator of Concerned Citizens of New York 03. We are an ad hoc group of nonpartisan residents from the district. We have an extremely narrow scope. The organization was just created a few weeks ago, and we have only one goal, and that is to have George Santos removed from squatting in our seat in the House of Representatives. So I want to first do a few thank yous. First of all, for Courage for America. Amazing organization. They do, their main thing that they're focused on is a campaign against the extreme MAGA agenda. And their focus is amplifying the voice of regular Americans and communities. So we thank Courage for America for helping to amplify our voice. And also for helping us get the bus. The bus is huge. Also, I want to thank the people from New York 03, the residents. So many folks have taken time away from work. They took personal days, they took vacation days, time away from their family to make the trip here today. And I also want to thank the press. You've been covering this story so closely, so assiduously, and we really appreciate that. So thank you. We are expecting Representative Dan Goldman and Representative Ritchie Torres, and things are going to be a little bit choppy because I know they've got some House votes, but when we come, we'll kind of just go with it. So what's on the agenda for today? I'm going to make some brief remarks. Then we'll be hearing from the two representatives, assuming they come
Here's one
at that time.
Jody, here's one of them.
I'm just going to make some quick opening remarks.
Please.
Okay.
Please. Great.
So, on behalf of Concerned Citizens of New York 03, why are we here? Why did we come to Washington? We are here because Speaker McCarthy apparently cannot hear us when we speak from Long Island. So we had to come to Washington to make sure he hears us. Speaker McCarthy, you're turning a deaf ear to our needs, but the country is beyond giving Santos the benefit of the doubt. Just today, we heard his announcement that an ethics investigation has been opened. It's just a delay. No findings are needed in order to expel him today or tomorrow. Yes. Most recently, so Santos has admitted his lies. Even every day, the press uncovers more lies. And most recently, the reports are that he's been swindling money from many pet charities, setting up GoFundMe accounts and taking the money for his private use. Absolutely despicable. The entirety of his FEC filings seem to be fraudulent, probably including even his name and his birth date. Santos is a grifter, and now he's grifting his way to a congressperson's salary of about $174,000 a year and benefits. Nobody trusts him. and as a result, he is impotent as a member of Congress and ability to represent us. Speaker McCarthy, if you need proof of wrongdoing, how about when he impersonated your staffer?
Yeah.
How can you tolerate such unethical behavior? Speaker McCarthy, how do you justify this utter waste of taxpayer money?
Yes.
The residents of New York 03 are beyond frustrated with your inaction. And I'm talking about both Democrats and Republicans.
Yes. That's right. Yes.
So now with that, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Dan Goldman from the 10th District of New York. Thank you. The folks from New York, do I see another representative here? We're so happy to see both of you. Anyway, I'm going to first turn it over to Representative Dan Goldman from the 10th District of New York. We thank you for your leadership and for holding George Santos accountable. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for gathering here today, but I think most importantly, thank you to all of the constituents from the 3rd District of New York to travel down here to make sure that their voices are heard. Congressman Torres and I filed a complaint with the House Ethics Committee a couple of weeks ago. It was one of the first things that we did as part of this Congress because we saw the unbelievable and unprecedented amounts of fraud, deception, and lies that a single person has brought to what should be the hallowed halls of the Capitol. And at the time, as many of you will recall, Speaker McCarthy said that the voters elected him, and that's why he was not going to call for his resignation. Well, today, we have the voters who are here.
Yes.
And we have information from lots more voters all around the district that clearly indicates that if they had known about the lies and deception, they would have never voted for George Santos.
Exactly. That's right.
So if you're going to steal money from the bank by holding the bank up, and you take the money, and then you say, well, the bank gave me the money, so it's okay, that's what Speaker McCarthy is saying.
Yep.
He's saying that you can deceive the voters, you can defraud the voters, but as long as the voters voted for you, then it doesn't matter. Well, now today, we're starting to see him backtracking, in part because of the incredible advocacy of the folks who are here. Because the voters have been heard, and the voters of the 3rd District want George Santos to resign. So now they're going to punt to the Ethics Committee. Now they're going to make the case, oh, well, we have to wait to see what the Ethics Committee is going to do. But let's remember, the ethics complaint and the ethics investigation is only going to focus on his financial disclosures and his campaign finance. Because the law, to this point, does not prohibit someone from lying about their education, from lying about their employment history, from lying about their military experience, from lying about their ethnicity, from lying up and down the level. That's not what they're going to investigate. But all of those lies by George Santos are more than enough to not only bring him disrepute, to bring this hallowed body disrepute, but to bring the Republican Party disrepute as well. And so the question then becomes, why won't Kevin McCarthy and Elise Stefanik urge George Santos to resign? We know George Santos is not going to resign on his own. He's making more money in Congress than he's ever legitimately made before.
That's right.
What's his incentive to resign? It's going to have to come from the top. But what do we know about Kevin McCarthy and Elise Stefanik? That they also knew about George Santos's lies during the campaign. Are they not pushing him to resign because they are concerned that George Santos has information that may be damaging to them about their role in the fraud scheme? We have to ask these questions because we've never seen a fraudster continue to get support by a Republican Party in this Congress.
Yes.
And make no mistake about it, George Santos, for as long as he is in Congress, is a member of the Republican Party. And if the Republican Party wants to wrap their arms around George Santos, then they can continue to go ahead. This should not be partisan. And in New York 3, it's not partisan because the overwhelming majority of Republicans also think that George Santos should resign. Republican members of Congress in New York have called on George Santos to resign. And it is now time, once and for all, listening to the voters and constituents of New York 3 who are down here to make their voices heard. It is time for George Santos to resign.
Yes. That was fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you. So now I have the pleasure of turning this over to Representative Torres, who actually came to our district just a few weeks ago. We were so pleased to have you come and to thank you in person, and so happy to have you here to be here with you today. And thank you for your leadership and your ongoing work with us. So thank you.
I was honored to come to your district, and normally if I go into the district of a congressperson, I'm going to give them the heads up. But since you have an absentee congressperson, I couldn't do so. Of the 535 members in Congress, there's no one who poses a greater threat to the integrity of the institution than George Santos. And the fact that George Santos resigned from his committees is an admission of guilt.
Yes.
And if George Santos is too corrupt and too compromised to be seated on a committee, then it logically follows that he's too corrupt and too compromised to be seated in the United States Congress. And it is obvious that Kevin McCarthy forced him out of his committee. And it's time for McCarthy to force him out of the United States Congress. So George Santos says, force him out. Force him out. Force him out. Force him out. Now George Santos, I give him credit. He's the greatest fiction writer in the history of Congress. I have trouble keeping track with his lies, but he has so far pretended to be a brain cancer survivor and a Broadway producer of Spider-Man and a volleyball champion and a survivor of an assassination attempt on Fifth Avenue.
He probably has ChatGPT.
The lies of George Santos are every bit as outrageous and outlandish as the man himself.
Yes.
But even more troubling than his lies is his pathological lawfare. George Santos violated House ethics because he claimed to have received millions of dollars from various clients, but he never disclosed the names of those clients on his disclosure as required by federal law. George Santos violated campaign finance law because he illegally received more than $700,000 in a loan, either from a third party or an illegal pastor.
Or in rubles.
And he ordered rubles. Maybe cryptocurrency. He also violated securities law because he operated as a broker for a $17 million Ponzi scheme without registering with the FEC. Every day is a new day with George Santos. Every day we find out about a new lie that he has told or a new law that he has broken. Every day he brings new embarrassment to the people of New York, to the people of Long Island. And it is time for him to resign.
Yes.
His ability to govern has been crippled by a complete collapse of credibility. According to polling, the majority of Republicans in his district want him to resign.
That's right. Resign.
The majority of House Republicans in New York have called upon him to resign.
Resign.
His constituents want nothing to do with George Santos. His colleagues want nothing to do with George Santos. Even the close associate of a sanctioned Russian oligarch wants nothing to do with George Santos. When you're more radioactive than the Russian oligarchs, there's something wrong with you. Right? His only reason for remaining in public office is to maintain leverage for a plea bargain in the event of criminal prosecution. His only purpose is to be a punchline for comedians. But the time has come to end the tragedy and the comedy that is George Santos. You should no longer be deprived of the representation that you deserve. And so I will not stop until George Santos is held accountable. And we must call out the hypocrisy of Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The House Republicans came here promising to drain the swamp, but they refused just drain the greatest swamp of them all, the Santos Swamp. And it's time to drain it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're now going to hear from Ben Marzouk. He's a Republican constituent in New York 03, and he's also a member of the Jewish community in New York 03. Ben?
Hi, my name is Ben Marzouk. We made the trip here today to really express our outrage regarding George Santos. We're here to push the FEC, as well as to continue their investigation, to push the Democrats, to push the Republicans, to push the independents to get this guy expelled. As a Republican, I do want to thank Congressman. Thank you very much for showing up, Torres. They've been a leader in pushing this, but there's also a lot of Republicans that are pushing for this, and that's good on my end. I'd like to see that. There are a number of individuals, whether it's Mike Lawler, whether it's Brandon Williams, Max Miller, Nancy Mace, who are publicly denouncing George Santos. As a Republican, George Santos certainly does not represent my party. He has tarnished my district and created an embarrassment for a party that we should not be defined by him. Republicans standing next to him proves that the nation cannot tell the difference between right and wrong. Cannot tell the difference between a hard-working congressman, an honest congressman or congresswoman, and an individual who is just simply a con man. Individuals who do the right thing, who are honorable, and a person who is just a liar. We come from a community where I know that we're laughing a little bit about some of his lies, but one thing that's really not funny is this is a community that at 9/11, we lost over 400 people on Long Island alone. I was down there. I was 3 blocks away when it happened. I know a lot of people who were obviously affected by it. We lived next to a community by the name of Manhasset, New York. Manhasset, New York had approximately 60 funerals within a 2.5 to 3 week span. 2 to 3 funerals a day. That's not funny. To say that your mother was part of that, you have to be really psychologically impaired to throw that around like it's nickels. I am disappointed with Representative Majority Leader McCarthy. What's ironic is that leader is in that title. It's not difficult to see and to do what's right and wrong. McCarthy, do the right thing.
Yeah.
Expel him. Have some respect, have some dignity, and do the right thing. Thank you.
Do the right thing! Do the right thing! Do the right thing! Do the right thing!
Now we're going to hear from, I'm not sure I got the name right, Taiba Ahmad. She's a teacher in the district.
Hello, my name is Taiba Ahmad. My family and I are Afghan refugees that came to this country in 1989. I grew up in New York. I consider myself a Queens girl, and I have lived on the New York east side of Queens for about over a decade. I'm a teacher, so when I was originally going to talk about how, as an educator, I try to teach my students to never lie, a principle that George Santos clearly does not live by. But as I was preparing my remarks, I received a phone call from an Afghan interpreter named Kader, who I have been assisting over the past 2 years to get him out of Afghanistan and into the U.S. You might be wondering what does an interpreter has to do with Mr. Santos. Well, Mr. Kader contacted me while stranded in Kabul after the Navy veteran he was working with to evacuate Afghanistan died of suicide. I contacted my congressman at the time, Tom Swazi. Thanks to his constituent service team, we were able to connect Kader to the State Department. Now, because of the help I got from congressional office team, he made it to Texas safely last week. But I still have other cases that are ongoing, and I need to be able to follow up with my congressman. Unfortunately, I cannot trust George Santos and his staff with something this sensitive. Constituents depend on their member of Congress daily to assist them with issues, some as unusual as mine, but even for everyday things like filing our taxes or applying for government services. Would you trust Mr. Santos with your personal information? Nope. This is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. It comes down to whether the residents of New York 3 deserve to have a real representation in Congress. Right now, we do not have a legitimate representation that we can depend on. Speaker McCarthy, you need to act now. Thank you.
So important. Services. Okay, we're going to hear from our last resident from the district, Aiden Davis, a young activist from the district, also a member of Concerned Citizens of New York 03. Aiden?
Hey everyone, I'm Aiden Davis. I'm 18 years old. I'm a student at Princeton University, and I'm a youth activist from Plainview. As a longtime resident of New York 3, I'm disgusted by George Santos, who it turns out is one of the biggest frauds in American history, and who remains a national embarrassment, unfit to represent New York's 3rd Congressional District. Congressman Santos lied, tricked, and defrauded his way into office, fabricating his qualifications and lying about nearly every aspect of his life in order to get ahead. The George Santos that was elected to represent New York 3 is not the real George Santos, and he's deprived us of a real representative who can be trusted to serve us. Because of his brazen lies, nobody in New York or in Washington trusts him. And who would? That means less money for our small businesses to fix our roads and invest in infrastructure, for reduced cost lunch programs that our students rely on, and to fix our communities. How is it possible that he could advocate for the people of New York 3 like this? Well, the answer is simple. He can't.
Can't.
A recent survey found that just 25% of young people trust the government. 20% of young people have a positive view of Congress. It's clear that even fewer young people will have faith in our government and in Congress if George Santos is allowed to stay in office.
Woo! That's right.
That's why we need Congress to act now. And that's why I'm here today to call on Speaker Kevin McCarthy to ensure that the House Ethics Committee not only investigates his misconduct, but that the entire House of Representatives votes to expel him from Congress immediately. We need somebody who can be trusted to sit on committees, somebody respected by their colleagues,
Yes.
and someone who can actually fight for our communities. Gen Z has seen enough corruption and dishonesty to make most people lose faith in their elected officials or give up on the system entirely. But we're here to make the government work for us. Speaker McCarthy could call a vote to expel Santos right now if he wanted. There's no criminal conviction necessary to remove a representative from Congress.
That's right. That's right.
All that's needed is a 2/3 vote.
2/3 vote.
Right. Courage.
And a little courage, yes. Mr. Speaker, you can end this madness right now.
End it now.
Like every member of Congress, you took an oath to protect the Constitution and to faithfully discharge the duties of your office. That's what I and millions of other young people are asking you to do.
Woo!
You can help the people of New York's 3rd Congressional District and help restore integrity to the House of Representatives by calling a vote to expel George Santos.
All that vote.
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
Do
Do the right thing.
Oh, we're just about done. I just want one or two concluding remarks. You know, tonight is the State of the Union. George Santos is going to be sitting in the House of Representatives. What an insult to the residents of our district. Will the GOP's rebuttal include a discussion about election integrity? How dare they talk about voter fraud? I have a question for you, Mr. Speaker McCarthy. If the GOP is so concerned about election integrity, how about doing something about the con man who lied his way into the House and perpetrated the greatest fraud on the electorate in American history?
That's right.
Thank you all. That's it. I think we're done. So we're heading up to the House office buildings. We're going to be dropping some petitions, and thank you all for being here.
Do the right thing. 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 Vote the right out. Vote him 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 out.
We need an exorcism on Capitol Hill to get rid of George Santos. An interfaith exorcism. That's what we need.